Hello, I'm Tony McDougal, the Communications and Engagement Lead at the Dorset Care Record, and welcome to the second in a series of webinars on key shared care record topics being produced by the Dorset Care Record, Wessex Care Records teams. Our last webinar in November looked at communications and engagement challenges and opportunities, and we're delighted today to be focusing on community pharmacies and shared care records. And with us today to discuss this topic are Amanda Moores, the Dorset LPC Chief Officer, and David Rose, who runs the busy Marnhull Pharmacy in North Dorset. And it's great to have you with us, particularly after probably one of the busiest periods of your lives dealing with COVID. Perhaps you could both say a little spiel about your work. Firstly, Amanda.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for letting us come along and talk to you today. So yeah, as you said, I am the Chief Officer of Dorset LPC, which is the representative body for all community pharmacies across Dorset. There are 147 community pharmacies right across the county of Dorset. We have a mixture of those who belong to the large multiples, high street chains, supermarkets. You have smaller chains, and then you have the independent pharmacies, of which David is one of those that we have across Dorset. As you've so rightly said, the last couple of years have been very, very challenging, very, very different, and hopefully we are now coming out the other side of it.
Thank you. David.
Okay, I've been a pharmacist for 38 years and own a single pharmacy for 31 of them. The village of Marnhull has a population of just over 2,000, with the same number in surrounding villages, but we do draw customers from a wide area, including several surrounding towns. So we dispense between 11 and 12,000 items per month. That's basically it.
Thank you, David. That's fantastic. So, Amanda, I remember, I think at a launch conference of the DCR in Bournemouth many moons ago, where we were sitting on the front seats, and you gave our technical architect, Andy Hadley, a fairly torrid time on why weren't community pharmacies involved in the Share Care Record as a key partner. Why do you think it's so important for community pharmacies to be involved in shared care records?
Well, thank you for reminding me of that. I think I probably was a little bit too keen. No, so let's think about this. I think I saw the DCR, I saw what it had to offer and thought, right, community pharmacy needs to be a part of this. Why aren't they a part of this? We're really keen to have community pharmacy to be seen as integrated into the NHS. This is a great way of doing it. If you look at the long-term plan, it talks about the fact that shared care records are going to become far more important and actually will stop the need for perhaps just using the summary care record. But primarily, I was thinking about what do community pharmacists do? What do community pharmacy teams do? And in essence, if you look at any patient pathway, what you'll find is at some point, if somebody has a long-term condition, they need support, they're likely to need a medicine. That medicine will be dispensed at a community pharmacy. And so they need to know about what's going on for that particular patient. And a lot of our pharmacy teams get asked questions when there isn't anybody else around to answer. And this is where the DCR comes into its own, because basically it's a great place for them to be able to go and find out the answers. So we wanted our teams to be able to have access to that, to be able to provide the best possible service for patients, and actually to make sure that they would be able to, that we could minimise risks of there being any problems.
Brilliant, thank you. So we were delighted, building on that, to be able to provide access to community pharmacies close to the start of the COVID pandemic back in the spring of 2020. And David, you've consistently over the past 18 months been perhaps our busiest user of the DCR. And I'd be really interested to find out what you found really useful.
The most useful thing is you get instant answers to queries. You can sort out the problem now. You don't have to come back to it or chase it for answers later if someone else hasn't got back to you. You can also look for answers to queries that you have referred and no reply has been received, which happens fairly often. Another thing is seeing Dorset Hospital letters and discharges often before they're actioned by the GP, even before these documents show within the GP record. Other things that we use it for is quite often a patient will come in and expecting a prescription, and we can look and see if a prescription has been issued. Quite often it's been issued by a non-prescriber but not yet signed. Last week, in preparation for this webinar, I did record what I went into the DCR for quite a few things. Some of the examples were, sorry, there's a dog in the background. Has the item been prescribed? It was dressings for a nursing. We could find out no, they hadn't. Steroid cream was indicated for a person, but they wanted to know if they might have had it previously prescribed. We could find out no. We received a prescription for an injection that was needed in a couple of hours' time, but it was a non-formulary item and therefore we didn't have it in stock. By looking at the summary care record, we knew who to phone and get it changed to the formulary item that we had in stock, and one happy patient. We can look at why requested items haven't been issued, no response to requests sometimes. When a patient swaps to us, our system will say that they may be eligible for the new medicine service, and we may not be able to tell if they've had the drug or not, but you can look on the on the Dorset Care Record and see if they have had it before, which just saves asking the patient when they come in. It saves us time. There is the local, was Wessex, now we're in Southwest, PERMS, emergency supply of medicines at weekends and the like. We do use it for that. One of the common things is patients coming in and there is no prescription at the pharmacy, and the reasons, one, the prescriber had accidentally clicked to print a paper prescription, but they never printed it, therefore never signed it. The GP has intended to prescribe something in the notes, but actually didn't go to prescribe it, so we can chase that up. We've had someone come in where the GP's recommended they purchase a medicine, but they can't remember what they're meant to purchase when they get to us. So we've used it to look up what that was. We look at if items have been stopped. We've had we queried last week a patient on 2 diuretics, which was unlikely, and we could tell that the prescriber had accidentally left one on repeat when he prescribed a new one. We do use it a lot for the discharge medication service. Last week, a patient requested an item they hadn't had for a couple of years. We could go and find out what it was. They knew what it was for, but not what it was called. And one where a patient had been told the item being prescribed, but by looking at the DCR, we could tell that the prescriber had changed their mind and cancelled the prescription before he actually signed it, but not told the patient that. So that's the sort of things we've used it for in the last week.
Wow, that's fantastic and a really comprehensive summary. Thank you so much, David. And interesting that you kind of mentioned the summary care record just then. So one of the questions that we found came up quite a lot when we launched a series of training and information webinars for pharmacists interested in joining the DCR was, well, you know, I've got the summary care record information, so why do I need the DCR information as well? Amanda, can I ask you that question? What additional use do you think can DCR provide community pharmacies compared with SCR info? Okay,
so trying to put it simply, the summary care record is a GP source, so you get the information that comes from the GP practice. The DCR has the information from the GP practice, but it comes from other areas as well. So you have, if you want to call it multi-care settings, you'll have hospital information, social care information. It gives you a much richer source of information, and ultimately it gives you a fuller picture. You can see what's going on. So you might be able to see blood tests, you might be able to see when somebody's next due to have an appointment. And sometimes it can be as simple as trying to find out why somebody was originally prescribed something, because there's nothing on the notes saying, why is this patient taking this medicine? Sometimes the patient can't even remember, and it gives you all of that detail. And actually it helps enormously to make sure that we're covering off all aspects, particularly around as we have an aging population in Dorset in particular, and this is something that is becoming more and more of a challenge, is understanding the needs around social care. And as that information starts to come in, that can be really important, because if you're a pharmacy team and you're trying to support somebody with their medicines, you don't know, you might need to know at times whether they have a care agency or they're receiving any kind of support at home, somebody who can help them with their medicines, and that can help make sure that patients take their medicines in the right way. So it's a rich source of information. Thank you.
David, anything more to add on that?
Yeah, the summary care record is basically a list of medications, prescriptions. All that information is on the DCR, but much more of it. You can look at all the issues. the summary care record will only tell you the most recent one, but it's sometimes useful to know how often or when they last had it, or if they've got it somewhere else, things like that. So also, as Amanda said, information for other services. With my elderly population, quite a lot of them have an input from district nursing, and they think there should be something for them to collect and something like that. We can access both. We can see if the district nurse has asked for a prescription and then whether the GP's actually done it. So the DCR is my go-to source now because it is SCR Super Plus.
Wow, that's lovely to remember that DCR is SCR Super Plus. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Just turning now perhaps to the national perspective. You know, we've been working on this for some time now, Amanda, and it's been really heartening to see how local pharmacies have been using this. Obviously, with a national picture, it's slightly more difficult with national chains working right across the country with different shared care records. Obviously, the aim of the WCR, the Wessex Care Records, is to bring interoperability across the region of Hants and the Isle of Wight and Dorset, and then join up with other regional care records to eventually get to a national system, which we've all been crying out for years. What do you think we should try and do to perhaps bring the nationals to the table ahead of a national system being available, which may not be for some time?
An interesting and difficult question. Thank you for that one. So I suppose we have to think about this. I'm going to say, with all due respect to people like David, so it's much easier if you own your pharmacy. You see the DCR and you say, great, I want to be involved in the DCR. Thank you. I will get on and do that. And actually, that's exactly what David did. He came along to a webinar where we showed him what it could do. He said, right, great, I'm going to do that. Now, for the national chains, this brings all sorts of challenges, because even locally they might want to do it, but they can't. They don't have the power, if I'll call it that. They don't have the possibility to say, yes, we're just going to do it. They have to go away and have conversations within their organisations. And we have to think about how this might be impacting. We are one small area of England, and there'll be all the other areas in England that will be saying, well, we want you to have your pharmacies using our shared care records. So they've probably had about 40 plus requests for different shared care records for their pharmacies to access. So the company will have to look at every single one in turn, see what's involved, what does it mean for them, see how it fits in terms of priorities that might be going on within the company, and actually putting systems in place to manage it. So David could just speak to his team and say, right, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it, this is the training you need to do, off we go. For a larger company, they have to go through the process of probably going through governance, trying to manage it. What does it look like? Why are we wanting to do it in this way in Dorset? Why can't we all do the same thing? And even if I just about think of some of the simplest things for them, is actually getting authorization for their pharmacy teams to even be able to access certain websites. So this is a portal that they go to, but they have to get permission to do it. And that all takes time to do. So I think we started off slowly. We're beginning to grow. We have had some pushback from some of the larger chains, but others have said, OK, tell us why we should do it. And they have said, OK, let's try it in a couple of pharmacies. Let's try and put the things in place that allow them to do it. So for me, this is to carry on engaging with them. It's don't give up. We just need to keep going. And I think it's about talking to them around the good things around it and actually the benefits. We're starting to see the benefits. David could probably sit and write a little document for us all about the benefits of DCR and why you definitely can't be without it on a daily basis in the pharmacy. And actually start to show people the benefits, but also what they're missing out on. And if I think now about some of the new services that are coming on board, things like the discharge medicine service, which is an essential part of community pharmacy provision, the DCR allows you to look at discharge medication when somebody is leaving hospital. That's a really key part. So it's not only about the fact that the benefits, it's actually what they might be missing out on in terms of being able to provide the best care for their patients. So we just need to keep going and show them that it is the right way to move forward.
Thank you, Amanda. So David, you've written your document on benefits of the DCR, and you're showing it to a national company. What would you be saying as an independent pharmacist yourself?
as Amanda said, I'm coming from a very small. So I can just go ahead and do it. But an answer to a later question that's going to come up is it will give their staff, it'll make their life easier and give them satisfaction. You can do a better job with it, and it'll help the companies with their kudos and things like that. It will help everyone.
Thank you, David. Thank you. It was a bit unfair for me to ask that question at that time. Sorry. So a little bit around promotion, because obviously that's equally important, and we've tried to do quite a bit of promotion in terms of promoting community pharmacies in the local and the national health press media. So we've done a blog for Pharmaceutical Journal. There's been news stories, case studies. We've provided leaflets, posters, and various bits of merchandise. We've talked to NHSX as it was, and provide information for articles for the national PSNC. What more do you think should the sector be doing to promote shared care records, Amanda? And then perhaps after that, David, how did you find the training that we provided?
So I think the promotion, we need to keep going. So as part of this preparation coming to talk to you, I thought, right, let me go and see what I can find out about shared care, because what's out there. And I went onto PSNC website, which is our national negotiating body, and I'm delighted to see that Dorset is on there as a prime example of what good should look like. So the DCR should be very proud of what we should be very proud of what we've actually achieved, because it does show that what we can do, and it's really important that we continue to promote that. So David and I did a webinar with several people from around the country as part of the work with PSNC. So we're trying to get the, I suppose, people to come in that way. So as part of that, the national bodies, the large chains attended, so people could see what we were doing. And I think we just need to keep on plugging away at it. We're doing some work locally with our committee members, where we're contacting pharmacies and talking to them about the benefits of doing this, and actually just trying to highlight the good aspects of it. And actually I think it's about the benefits to them, the benefits to the patients, and ultimately, as David described, trying to promote it along the lines of the fact that it actually allows them to do their job in a far better way. That's the great opportunity of it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amanda. David, how did you find our training? You can be honest.
Yeah, well, no, at first sight, I thought, it looked a bit difficult, a bit onerous, but actually when you got into it, it wasn't that bad. And don't be afraid of failing it a couple of times. You just go round again. It is. Some of the questions are slightly unexpected, but it makes you think. And there's nothing wrong with getting the answer wrong. It blocks you out for a short while, makes you go and think about the correct answer, and you come back to it. It is good training. It made me think how it was going to work for me and how I could use it responsibly.
Thank you, David. Thank you. So just a little bit around single sign-on now, in terms of, we recognise very much here at the Dorset Care Record that much of our growth in recent times over the last year has been due to the ability of partners to go straight from their own EPR system to the DCR at a touch of a button, so click-throughs or single sign-on as we call it, and that's helped us to kind of 67,000 records accessed last month, which is fantastic. But obviously that's not available for community pharmacies. Do you think that's a major issue for take-up not being higher than it is? Is it still too difficult for busy pharmacists to take advantage of this? That's open to both of you.
Well, I don't mind starting with that one, because it's got the usual password rules that you have now with lowercase, uppercase, probably numerals and special characters and things like that. So like everyone else, I've got one where I do sequentially change one of the characters and then another one and so on. And when it changes after a few months, I do forget and keep putting the old one in. And I do forget that my NHS email address that you use has got a number in it sometimes, and it keeps telling me I keep assuming I've got my password wrong. And after about 4 goes, I realise I've got my email wrong. So life would be just a little bit easier. The obvious thing is NHS Smart Card. If it saw that, because the NHS Smart Card will immediately get you into the Summary Care Record or the EPS tracker, the prescription tracker. If it does let me into the DCR as well, that would just make life a little bit easier, and I wouldn't have to remember quite as many passwords.
Amanda, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I was just to say, because we've actually seen, what is it, SCR One Click has been made available on other platforms that the pharmacies use. So actually, if you're in there doing a consultation with a patient, and perhaps or you're having a conversation, and rather than, as David says, trying to remember all the logins and where am I, what am I doing, to be able to just click on a button that takes you straight in. I think anything that makes it easier for access, it's going to improve the likelihood. And having seen the data from when your single sign-on came on board, seen what's happened, you're thinking, okay, that's the answer. You really have allowed users to just get on with it. And I think the easier we make the access, the more likely people are to actually to use it. So if we can work on that one, so it's called SCR One Click. Why can't we have DCR One Click? That would be absolutely fantastic. And I'll leave that one for you and your team, Tony, to sort out.
And I might pass that on to Andy Cowling, our head of service, and Astrid Fairclough, our director, I think, of that one. But thank you. That's a really valid point. And kind of continuing in that vein, one of the issues I think we uncovered when we gave the green light to community pharmacies was issues around digital technology and being able to log on to the DCR. Do you think perhaps a lack of digital knowledge or being digi savvy is preventing some from taking forward their leap into the DCR? Any thoughts from either of you?
Well, you had to learn something new when it's set up, that I had to go to my IT supplier and they had to allow the access through their firewalls. So you've probably picked up on that, and you probably tell people that needs to be done. They won't let me do it through a VPN yet, because they would just, if they had all the local care records going through their VPN, it would fall over, they thought. But because I'm working home quite a bit now, yeah. But once you've got it set up, it's quite easy. It's not a problem. It's web based as well, so pharmacy staff are used to using web things, and once you're into it, it's easy and intuitive to use. I think you just click on and expand the left-hand column, and you can see what you want.
Amanda, anything to add?
Well, I was going to say I'm definitely not an IT expert from any shape or form. So I had a look at it and thought, right, okay, even I can use this. However, I think it is around something around functionality within pharmacy. So I'm going to be, with all due respect, pharmacies do have computer systems. They have they're called PMR systems, so it keeps their patient medication records. And some of these might be systems might be a little bit more advanced than others. And to be fair, I think there will be some that will be able to use this more easily. I think some of the IT that is available probably isn't as advanced as it could be. I think David would probably appreciate that in terms of community pharmacy. But, it is about, I suppose, growing with what's going on and moving with the times, as it were. And again, this will be a harder to achieve for the multiples, because they'll have to do it for a lot of different pharmacies, whereas if an independent wanted to upgrade their IT system, probably it would be a little bit easier to do. But once the staff are able to use it and know how to use it, I don't believe that there'll be any issues. It's just getting the right IT in, and hopefully we can help the pharmacies to have that as part of their work with this.
Thank you. We are all the time trying to add greater interoperability to the DCR, and in the past month we've added a diabetes pathway for DCH clinicians, which will be rolled out to UHD and other specialists. So we've also added some cancer feed information through the Wessex Cancer Alliance, and clinical software firm TPP have made changes to its national estate, allowing DCR viewers to see a history of interactions between different services and community settings. So, for example, information around a patient who was under a physio team would in the past not be shown when they were discharged, which obviously is kind of problematic for social care particularly, but now it does. So it's great to have that additional interoperability, but what would you like to see in the DCR from a community pharmacy perspective that's currently not available?
Shall I go first, David?
If I can, as I'm on the sharp end, I mean, I'm really happy with what's available. It's made my life easier and more satisfying. I just get answers. The thing about is my geography at the edge of Dorset, in North Dorset. I can see why you're working with Hampshire, because the bigger population's down there. But for us, we do feed into the Dorset hospitals, but we also feed into Yeovil in Somerset and Salisbury in Wiltshire. So to see a national one or being able to go further afield would be really useful for us.
That's interesting. And we at the same time as community pharmacies were given access to the DCR, we also provided access to Yeovil. So Yeovil do have access, and we are currently talking to Salisbury, and we expect we've now had clearance from our Pan Dorset IG group to allow Salisbury clinicians to have access. So we are getting there, and sometimes it feels a little. I
got really excited when you said Yeovil, but it turns out Yeovil are sort of read only, aren't they? They're yes. They're reading us, but we're not reading them, which is
yeah. So
when discharge medication came in, it looked like Yeovil was going to be way off, and then suddenly they'd done it within a couple of months. So let's hope.
Definitely.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, so I think going further afield is fantastic, and recognising that patients are seen outside of the county is really important. But in terms of other things, that services within the county, it's making sure not only have we got the acute trust information in there, but it's also the community mental health trust, because I think sometimes if I can be very honest with you, sometimes the prescriptions you might see that come from the Community Mental Health Trust, they aren't even electronic, they're handwritten. So you're actually having information or access available to the DCR, that would be really useful. But also around things, so for some pharmacies, they do provide support to people who are accessing the drug and alcohol teams. So people who are taking opioid substitution therapy, if we can understand what they're having, who they're seeing, who their caseworker is, that kind of thing, that can be incredibly important, particularly if there's a problem around the fact that perhaps there's a misunderstanding around medication, perhaps they haven't turned up for some of their medicines, about knowing who to contact, how to manage it. That kind of detail would be incredibly useful. I'm sure there are other areas that we'd like to add in, but I think that we've got a really, really good, as David says, really good basis of information there. Anything you can add on top now is just like adding the cherries on top of a cake.
Yeah.
We're definitely talking to the drug and alcohol Halo service. We really hope to have them on board, in the kind of short to medium term. So that will certainly be really helpful. But thank you guys for that. Really, I suppose as we draw to the conclusion of this webinar, I'm just wondering if you've got any last thoughts you'd like to say to either from a local perspective or from a sort of regional and national perspective. David, over to you first.
I think the main point I'd like to say to pharmacy staff are used to giving a reason to access the SCR. To use a DCR, you just have to be involved in the care of the patient and use the information for this care. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to give reasons. Basically, we're trusted to use it, trusted to keep it confidential. This makes the DCR easier to use for pharmacy staff, and they should not be afraid to use it. It will improve patient care and make life easier and give them satisfaction.
Thank you. Amanda.
Well, I think that's a lovely way of summing it up, David. I think the DCR has been fantastic, and when Community Pharmacy in Dorset was offered the opportunity to be able to start accessing it back in 2020, I was absolutely delighted, and I would just want to say thank you to the DCR team for the work that you've done. When I think about where we started and where we've got to, things have moved and changed. You've listened to what we've said. It's been I felt it's been very much a joint effort. We've worked together, and actually it's moving forward at a great rate. I'm looking forward to seeing the next parts of the DCR and what we can next look forward to seeing on there. But thank you for all that you do within your team, and we will keep supporting you with the rollout with Community Pharmacy as much as we can.
Well, that's fantastic news, and thank you so much to Amanda and David for your time today. Our next webinar will feature the Wessex Care Record's Ian Hayward. That will be available in mid-March. Details to come. This webinar will be available online via our YouTube channel and also in the Wessex Care Records repository available for its website. So I'd just like to say thank you so much to Amanda and David, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.